Hello everybody and welcome back to the weekly English shooting live stream. I will of course be your host for this evening, Callum, and thank you very much for joining. I hope you've all had a fantastic previous week, lots of shooting in between the last live stream, and I hope you're doing all very well. So some interesting stuff from the past week to talk about. Big news, a topic that has been long discussed here within the UK about moderators, suppressors, silencers, whatever you want to call them, and the growing conversation and movement towards them becoming a completely unrestricted item. We're also seeing some really interesting statements coming out of the Canon inquiry. So this is the inquiry that's been launched after the Canon shooting, where 5 people tragically lost their lives, and pointing towards a lot of stuff that we already knew, but also are aware that there will be some change. And is that going to be changed in terms of the guns we can own here, or is that going to be change in terms of firearms licensing? Because I think we can all agree it's well overdue some change and proper structure within that department. And Basque have latched on to Keir Starmer after the quite ridiculous comments that he made last week, again regarding various shootings and the types of firearms used. And of course, don't be afraid to get involved. There is a chat box. You can ask questions, pose topics, anything you think we should be discussing, then put it in the chat box, and also use it to get involved on the discussions that we're having. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have another point of view or anything to add? It's free to use, and it's also free to hit that like button. Makes a big difference to the channel, and it makes me feel all warm and fuzzy. So take those few seconds to just hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. A lot of people that watch this channel aren't subscribed. I don't know why. They keep on coming back, they keep watching. So why not know when a new video is out, know when we're live streaming, even though it's pretty much 8:30 on a Thursday every single day, every single week. But yeah, you've got nothing to lose. Hit that subscribe button, see where it takes you. But yes, a big thanks to everyone joining. Let's get in properly into the first topic. And I know a lot of Americans are going to end up watching this getting very envious, because even how things are currently with suppressors. What do you think? Let's take a little poll, a little vote. What do you refer them to? I know the movie name is a silencer, but we all know that that's not really that practical unless you're shooting, say, like a 2.2 or they don't really silence the gun. They do suppress the sound or moderate the sound. I know here in the UK, moderator, or I think moderator is probably the go-to most popular phrase. Everyone and their mother knows what a silencer is. And I know that suppressor is pretty popular. So what do you choose? How do you refer to them? I will probably duck, dive, and move around using all 3 terms throughout the stream, but I'll try and keep it consistent. Maybe just for anybody that isn't into guns watching this channel, I don't know why you wouldn't be, I'm just going to call them silencers. I'm going to go for the movie, the John Wick terminology. But anyway, this has all come from an article from the Gun Trade News. Actually, a really insightful sort of industry publication. It's about the movers and shakers within the industry, but also they have some really interesting articles. I think this is where I got the confirmation that the Home Office were throwing around numbers about £200, £250 for a firearms certificate. But they're the gift that keeps on giving. So the Sound of Silence, BSSC, the British Shooting Sports Council, although they've called it the Sports Shooting Council, I'm pretty sure it's the British Shooting Sports Council, but the BSSC and the GTA, which is the Gun Trade Association. For those that don't know, the BSSC is a council of all the different stakeholders within shooting. So you have like BASC on it, you have the UK PSA, the NRA, the NSRA, CPSA, you have representatives from government, from police, from firearms licensing, FELWIG, whatever. Like it really is sort of the umbrella organization where everybody comes together, and I think most of the time might just have tea, cake and sandwiches, but there are some interesting discussions that come out of it. So BSSC and the GTA campaigning to remove moderators from licenses. It's technically not license, it's a certificate, and this is a topic that we have touched upon before. Never mind that it seems to be one of the go-to chats down the range in the clubhouse about, well, I think it's about time they take the moderators, suppressors, silencers off of ticket. At the end of the day, it is just effectively a metal can, and we will get into the ins and outs of our laws shortly, which makes the argument for removing them from certification and licensing a little bit more compelling. But yeah, this is a topic that has been discussed for as long as I've been in shooting sports, and I'm sure long before. But earlier last year, it picked up some traction because it was broken that there were some, let's say, in-depth discussions between various stakeholders, and that it was going to be a plan of the collective BSSC council to push for them to be removed from certificates. Loads of reasons why, and there's loads of reasons why they shouldn't. Mainly in the current climate, I think this is probably the best, silver lining, the best motivation for moving them off of certificate, is that it takes a lot of time to process applications, renewals, documentation within firearms licensing around the suppressors, and we know that they are they're overwhelmed at the moment. So anything that can free up their time and let them get on to the real issues, at the end of the day, if you don't have a firearm to put a moderator on, why if you've got a moderator, what harm is that going to do unless you're going to go around beating people over the head with it? And in terms of our laws, this is why it gets really ridiculous. So a moderator at the moment is considered a firearm. It is on its own considered a firearm, which means that when one is purchased, that goes towards the firearm ownership statistics. When one is lost, as we've seen previously many years ago, it goes towards the firearm loss certificates. So yeah, there's, for what is just a metal can, there's actually a lot of significance, and it ends up skewing a lot of the statistics. And this is the absolutely ridiculous thing about it. So this is a moderator. Tell me something you don't know, right? But an SAK moderator is both known for being a airgun moderator, so something on a 177, a 22 airgun, an unrestricted sub 12 foot-pound airgun that anybody over the age of 18 could go out and buy without any certification or licensing. And if you have one of those guns, or even without one of those guns, you can go and buy one of these moderators without any certificate, you might get asked for ID, but there's no requirement to produce any certification or licensing to be able to own it. And these moderators are also proofed for 2.2, for 2.2 long rifle, so they can be used both with a 2.2 pellet gun, air gun, or a 22, a 2.2 rimfire gun. And the story that I've said many, many times before, and just one of the oddities of our firearms licensing system, is that at the time I had a SAK moderator that I had bought for an air gun, and it used to sit on my windowsill because it wasn't licensed. I wasn't required to take any, let's say, due care with that. I didn't need to lock it up. I didn't need to tell anybody that I had it, and I could sell it to pretty much whoever I wanted. I could even put it in the post. But when I ended up getting a rifle, a 2.2 bolt action rifle that this also fitted on, I needed to sign it onto my firearm certificate before I could use this moderator that I had been using lawfully without a certificate on an air gun with that rifle. And the moment that this gets signed onto a certificate, it becomes a firearm. So whilst it was quite happy on the windowsill, not bothering anybody, as soon as it goes on that firearm certificate, it needs to be locked away in a safe. So what is that achieving, right? What is that preventing? Anybody for any purpose can go and buy one of these for an air gun, right? So why is writing it on a firearm certificate and suddenly then having to put it in a safe, what is that achieving other than significantly more work and significantly more paperwork for the police and firearms licensing and firearm certificate holders? And this is really the crux of the argument of why they should be taken off of ticket. Again, on their own, they're no good to anybody. Again, apart from a potential pole or something to throw at someone, right? But you put it on a firearm and then you've got to lock it away. At the end of the day, it's the firearm and moreover the person that you need to be checking and vetting and certificating. And if you've deemed them fit enough and suitable enough to have a firearm certificate and firearms, then why does it matter if they've got a moderator on the end of that gun? And the other big argument with this, and the reason that we have suppressors here within the UK, moderators, I told you I'd switch between them, is because of hearing protection. It's because of health and safety. Anybody applying for a firearm certificate, if you ask for a moderator, a slot for a moderator, you will be given it, because no firearms licensing department in their right mind is going to turn down you having one of these just in case you go and get tinnitus or you lose hearing in your ear and then you make them liable for that. So my experience with my firearm inquiry officer is I asked for one, maybe two moderators, and this was because the range that I was shooting on, the club, required moderators for you to shoot the rifles there. And he was like, well, why are you just going for moderators for these two guns? Don't you want moderators for all of them? And I was like, well, if you're going to give them to me, I'll take them. So he ended up giving me slots for something like 8 moderators or something ridiculous, even though I'd only asked for 2. So they really don't care. This is the least of firearms licensing's worries, but it still creates a lot of aggro for them. So this is where these talks are coming in. So both the British Shooting Sports Council and the Gun Trade Association have engaged with government departments in a coordinated attempt to remove the requirement to put moderators on firearm certificates. Both organisations argue that the law, as it stands, needs reforming. Scary word, that. Being a shooting organisation or association and asking for reform, be careful what you wish for. Moderators are currently treated as firearms themselves under the law, a historical hangover from the use of silencers in espionage and assassination. Why would they just... Anyway, today's moderators are seen as an essential piece of health and safety kit. Initial approaches to government and police have met with encouraging responses, and this is what we were talking about earlier last year. It's these encouraging responses. They were receptive to the idea of it, but it does now go further. Chris Phillip, the police minister, has stated there is a strong and growing case for legislation to remove them from current firearms licensing controls. How about that? The government are being a little bit rational, logical, level-headed when it comes to firearms laws. Graham Downing, head of BSSC, told us it is encouraging that the minister has recognised the strong and growing case for deregulating sound moderators. Almost everyone who hunts with a rifle now uses a moderator. They represent no threat to public safety, and licensing them involves police in much unnecessary work. Removing them from licensing control would ease the burden of the shooting community and free up police time for much more important matters of licensing firearms and shotguns. BSSC will be urging the Home Office officials to take this initiative moving forward at the first legislative opportunity. Simon West of the Gun Trade Association, GTA, writes for us about the campaign in his exclusive column on page 40. I'd actually missed that. We'll go and have a look in a second. Although the early signs are encouraging, it's there's always a but, right? Whenever there's something good, there's a but coming. Both West and Downing acknowledge that this may be a slow change to implement, and it is likely to have to wait until some other firearms legislation is brought before Parliament. So it's like, you give with one hand, you take away with the next. Now, that's actually quite, whilst again, whenever you talk about changing legislation and to do with firearms, it very rarely ends up in our favour. But it's promising that they're being somewhat logical about this. It's just what they will potentially lump it in with. At the end of the day, they're not going to rewrite the law just for moderators. I think it is quite understandable that it's going to have to be part of more stuff and maybe a bigger case and a bigger change, whatever that is likely to be. So that does make sense. It doesn't necessarily seem like there's something funky going on in terms of distract them with this good stuff while we sneak out the back and do the bad stuff. Moreover, there are already changes due to come into legislation that we're well aware of. Of course, there is, all this talk about upping the licensing fee. There's all this talk of a firearms licensing reform, that it's in crisis, so it could be as lumped in with all of that. But then going back with the likes of the firearm safety consultation, we've seen the changes to the miniature rifle exemption. It has been agreed that we are going to change the law around the miniature rifle exemption, section 11.4 of the Firearms Act, that currently allows anybody who is not a prohibited person to buy a firearm in a 2.2 rimfire, or technically as the law is written, up to a .23 caliber firearm rifle, for the purposes of running a miniature rifle range, which there is no lawful definition of. And I think, again, we do this a lot, but whether you agree or disagree with the whole certification system, we have a certification system. We have firearms licensing. It seems completely bizarre that there's this sort of back door to being able to get hold of the same guns without any certification, without any checks, and without any really defined good reason within law. So most of the shooting community have gone, yeah, okay, changing the law for section 11.4 to require a firearm certificate or a RFD or a club certificate, a Home Office approved club certificate, can't really argue against that. It just seems logical in that sense. So maybe this is going to get rolled into something like that. When I'm actually trying to remember, there were other changes as well coming from the firearm safety consultation. I think there were going to be tweaks about safe storage and the security levels, a little bit. It was the ammunition, so the definition of ammunition and what is going to be licensed and what's going to be certificated. So we already know that stuff is coming, and most of the shooting community is like, okay, yeah, fair enough. It doesn't really change. Most people that are running a miniature rifle range already have firearm certificates, already have registered firearm dealership certificates, and most people that are reloading, most people that are using ammunition, yes, okay, there's the collectors, there's the inert stuff, they may suffer, but in terms of live ammunition, it doesn't matter if you have you have a certificate for a whole round, or whether you have to start having cases and bullets and primers and powder on your certificate. It makes very little difference to firearm certificate holders. If in those changes we get the moderators off certificate, I think that's a pretty good trade. Some stuff that overall makes a lot of sense whilst being more restrictive, but not actually changing a lot for most people, combined with something that is going to actually make things a hell of a lot easier and make a very big positive difference to firearm certificate holders. I'm waiting for the but. Like, it's never that simple, it's never that easy, and it never goes that well for us. But I really cannot see the argument for keeping moderators on certificate. Let me know what you think on that. Do you completely agree? Do you think they should be handing them out like Tic Tacs? But I think the argument for keeping them on ticket is incredibly weak, and there are just so many positives, so many positives to taking them off ticket. And at least you won't have this weird, like, is it really a loophole, but this weird situation where you can buy moderators for air guns off ticket, but the same one if you want to put it on a rifle with some. It's just more confusion, it's more grey area, it's more potential for people to trip up. We need our firearms legislation, our firearms guidance, and the firearms licensing departments to be far more streamlined, far easier to understand. And you think somebody starting the role as a firearm inquiry officer, all of these niches and sort of weird oddities of our firearms law, it's going to take them a very long time to get up to speed with all of that. So just stop making it overcomplicated. Yeah, as it's been stated, there's no risk to public safety with people being able to go and buy moderators. All the time that the guns are restricted, it makes no difference. Never mind, there are certain websites where you can go and buy very odd-shaped oil filters. So people can go and buy this stuff and have been able to buy this stuff fairly easily with or without a certificate for a very, very long time. Why add the added paperwork? Why add the added work, complication, and confusion in keeping them on ticket? So yes, let's see what you guys say. Interesting to see that most of you seem to go with moderator, with a few saying suppressor. Of course, moderator is shortened to mod quite a lot. Small stubby silencers are minor mods. That's probably something that Paul Wyborn is going to know a little bit more about. I don't think he's necessarily in the major mod category just yet. But yeah, so silencer isn't really within the shooting community, well, certainly in the UK, it's not a term that you will hear that often. It's just more understood to the wider public, I guess. But yeah, let's see what you guys are saying elsewhere. It's an exhaust pipe, for God's sake. Our American friends will be jealous. Yes, they will. We have some silver linings, right? We have, we can have shorter barrels without needing a tax stamp, although they can go obviously a lot shorter even without a tax stamp because they're allowed to own handguns. And we can, even with the certification system, we can still get our hands on moderators pretty quickly without paying that tax stamp. Richard Wayne, the best news article I read this week was a woman who got jailed for messaging a dog on Facebook. I don't know necessarily why that's relevant to this discussion, but thank you anyway. John, I think all current gun owners should have to be mandatory health checked yearly, but at the same time have a similar access to firearms like the Americans. Very interesting sort of proposal, very interesting take on things. The mandatory health checks, I would assume you mean more mental health checks. This is something that is banded around quite a bit. It's something that gets brought up a lot. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion still, and I think there's still a lot of drive to move towards a 10-year firearm certificate. At the moment, it's 5 years every time it needs to be renewed. I think that would potentially be one of the trade-offs if we were to move to a 10-year valid firearm certificate, is to have either, as part of the renewal or part of the application process, you need to go and have a psychological report, you need to go and have a medical professional assess you, or maybe even though the certificate is valid for 10 years, you might have 2, 3, maybe sort of 5-year intervals where you need to go and have that mental health check sort of renewed. But we've discussed it. It is such a tricky one. Yes, 10 years is a very, very long time, but people can spiral downwards into being unsuitable as based by our suitability guidelines very, very quickly. Even if they reduced a firearm certificate sort of renewal period to a year, maybe 2 years, there's people that can go off the rails mentally in the space of a few weeks or a few months. But that's why, as a community, we're incredibly self-policing and self-monitoring. We've talked about this loads of times. Like, we're an incredibly social club. We may be full of grumpy old bastards for most of the time, and I'm not talking about the FUDs. I can be grumpy and old at times. Even people much younger than me at the club or down the range can be grumpy. Even Paul, I've got at least 10 years on that lad, and he can be as grumpy as the best of them. So I forgot where I was going with that. But yes, whilst we are grumpy, we are an incredibly social club. Like take practical shooting, for example. You go to a 12-stage match, and you spend the whole day there, usually travelling up the day before, staying there the night, and then heading back. It's a full day thing, like a level 3 national match. And 12 stages, so you're there for hours. But you'll be lucky if you get 2-3 minutes worth of shooting in. So it means for the rest of the 6 hours you might be stood there on a range plus, you're chatting to people, right? This is why in a lot of not just practical, but a lot of shooting competitions, if you are put into a squad, by the end of that competition, no matter if you've never, they could be speaking a different language, by the end of that competition you'll be wanting to take Facebook photos for Facebook and friending them and stay in touch forever, because you've probably done more talking to that person in that one day or over that one comp than you have most of your friends and family for the entirety of the year. So we are incredibly social, and that gives the opportunity, certainly with the prerequisite of having a firearm certificate for the purpose of sport, of being a home office, a member of a home office approved club. That's why this is one of those good barriers, because if you're attending a club, you're usually being social, you're talking to people, and that gives the opportunity for other people to notice worrying or concerning, alarming, red flag raising changes in your personality. There have been cases where I'm well aware of situations where someone, they've been chatting and saying, look, I've just been made redundant, my wife is leaving me, and I'm a bit down at the moment. And you can, you're like, yeah, you've not been right the past few weeks, right, mate? Go and put your tickets in with your RFD. Go and put your guns in storage, and just let's get over the hump of the bad times. It happens quite a lot. No intervention of the police or firearms licensing. It's a self-policing within the community, and that's why we've got to look out for each other. At the end of the day, it looks bad on every firearms owner, every shooter out there when something goes wrong, as we've seen time and time again. David Kiddle, we Caliber Innovations make moderators. Rick B, I think the original design was patented as a silencer. Mr. Britton, hand warmer for cold weathers. Yes, they are very, very good at that. Personally, on a when we're doing some practical shotgun, holding on to the barrels, if it's a cold, windy day and you've just done a stage and you've usually stripped out of your big coat and you're in your thin competitor shirt, you're freezing. So afterwards, stood there on the rack, holding onto your barrel, bliss. It's the best. It is the best hand warmer. Richard, I know there is reasons why you need a mod on an FAC license, but I do like, as a sub 12-foot-pound air rifle shooter, I can buy as many mods and put on as many rifles as I like without having a license to buy to buy one. Exactly. And I think it's that case that really is the door wedge to what is going to hopefully happen and them coming off certificate, because people, how bizarre would that be? You have a sub 12 pound air rifle that you can go out and buy, but if you want to put a moderator on it, you need to suddenly go and apply for a firearm certificate. So that's what's always left the door open to them being able to be bought off of ticket. But it's just when you put them on a licensed firearm, on a certificated firearm, that's when you need them on the certificate. Would be great for you to own multiple mods. It's tough to gauge which is best for your needs compared to others. Yes, just like there's a different gun for different purposes, there's different mods for different purposes. And this is the other thing, the SAK moderator is 40 quid, right? And I've used it. It's a decent little mod. It's going to do a pretty good job for that price. But then you have, like Wildcat moderators that have a hell of a lot more features that you can get interchangeable nuts for to use them on multiple rifles, much higher quality, much more expensive and higher performing. So, you get started off in this sport and you go and spend 40 quid on an SAK moderator, which I think most people go and do. And then a few years down the line, you're like, I want to upgrade this. I want to go and buy a Wildcat moderator. Well, then you need to put in for a 1-for-1 variation. You need to find somebody either with a firearm certificate to sell the SAK mod to, or you need to sell it to a registered firearms dealer. Then you need to apply for your 1-for-1 variation. That's additional time, cost, energy from both parties, both the certificate holder and firearms licensing, to then be able to go and buy pretty much the exact same thing to put on the end of your gun. So again, moving them off of ticket, unrestricting them, is just going to cut all of that out, and it will allow people to go and buy that 40 quid one, use it for a year or so, and go, actually, I'm going to buy, I ended up buying an ATAC moderator. They were pretty decent as well. But yeah, it's just going to allow more flexibility. And, it's also going to help improve trade. The easier you make it to buy and sell these things, the industry is going to do better. And we are seeing a significant decline within the industry, widespread. Certainly businesses within the firearms industry that are very UK centric. Fortunately, like with Magload, the majority of our business is now international. If it wasn't, we would be seeing some significant restriction in our sales, because people aren't going out there and getting their certificates at the moment. They're not being approved to be able to go out and buy all the stuff and enter the sport. So, I don't think it should be necessarily easy for somebody to just walk into a gun shop and buy a firearm. But things like moderators, the things like ammunition limits and all of that, like, what does it actually achieve? Like, what does being able to own 5,000 rounds of 2.2 rimfire, what's that going to do compared to owning 50,000 rounds? It's or even like full bore. People with 1,000 rounds of 223. Well, why does it matter if they have 10,000 or 100,000 rounds of 223? Like, it's still more than you can carry, right? It's not. It doesn't make any sense, and again, it creates a lot of admin and hassle. Quick reminder: if you are enjoying the stream and enjoying looking at my wonderful, beautiful face, then hit that like button. Hit the dislike button. YouTube doesn't show it anymore. See if I care. Please don't. Hit that like button, and if you want to see more of these live streams, then hit that subscribe button as well. Clear people on caliber. If I am deemed safe and suitable to have a 2.2 rimfire, what does it matter if I have 5? I can only shoot 1 at a time. Do you have 2 hands? Like, 2. Maybe you should have approval for 1 and then 2, because you need 2 hands. I mean, if you get really invented, technically you can start using your finger and toes. Sorry, your fingers and your toes, your feet. Ezra has left the building. So, but yeah, no, I completely agree. That would be another really good way to streamline firearms licensing. Again, I think it should be a tiered system. If you are approved and have been signed off to be able to have a 308, why does it matter if you have a 223, if you have a 243, or a 22? Right, you've got a 308. If you're safe enough and sensible enough to be able to, and suitable enough to have a 308, why does it matter if you've got a 223? It's I think you should have that you should be able to say, like 50 cal owners, woo, the doors would open, wouldn't it? Well, I'm a 50 cal shooter, I can now buy anything I like. It is, I do like the sort of good reason in a way, but the whole individual slots for certificates I think is a little archaic. If somebody is fit to own and purchase firearms, again, why does it matter if they've got 2 or they've got 20? All the police really care about is that person suitable? Well, yes, you've given them 1 gun, so they are suitable, and where the guns are. Like, that's the biggest thing that the police want to know, or the Home Office wants to know, or the government wants to know, is where those guns are, who's in ownership, where are they at. So as long as they're still being recorded, as long as they are still on your firearm certificate, why does it matter? At the end of the day, look at the shotgun certificate. Once you've got a shotgun certificate, as long as you've got the storage for it, you can buy literally as many Section 2 shotguns as you like, in as many different gauges as you like, without talking to anyone. It's just fill your boots. So maybe a little bit of consistency there is needed. Tony Vickers, sound moderators are just a pipe. Many FLDs want them taken off licensing, utter waste of time and resources. They are also consumables and subject to variation to replace. That is something that I completely missed. So talking about upgrading your moderator, but also, they do, as very well pointed out, they do wear out. Some moderators you cannot take apart, makes it almost impossible to clean, therefore they clog up, they're no longer effective, you need to bin that. Well, you can't just bin it, it's a firearm, as the law stands, so you've got to take it to a registered firearms dealer to have it disposed of, and then the 1-for-1 and all. It's just a lot of hassle for what is literally a metal pipe. Alexander Dale, I didn't have to ask my FEO. She actively offered them to me for all my firearms. That's sort of what I had with mine. But yeah, FEOs, they're just like, we don't care. We're giving you a 308 bolt action rifle or a 308 straight pull rifle. Why do we care if it's loud or quiet? At the end of the day, it's not like it is in the movies where suddenly people are going to become fucking, sniper ninjas. It's like, what was that? It still makes on a 308 it still makes a bloody big noise. Tony Vicker, flash hiders but not muzzle brakes are also supposed to be treated like moderators, but nobody cares about those. This is a really interesting point, and we stumbled upon this a number of months ago. And actually, we bearing in mind, we're in the firearms trade and fairly experienced, even as just hobbyists anyway. And we were like, flash hiders are technically a licensable component. They are a restricted component. And then we went and checked the bird cages on like all of the 22 ARs that we have, and they are proofed. They have a proof stamp on them, and we're like it's what? But a muzzle brake, fine. Again, why does it matter if you're hiding the flash of something? It's not like it's not like a flash hider really does remove all flash. It's more of a flash reducer. Certainly the standard sort of mil-spec bird cages, but yeah, that was something that we wanted to go and have clarified, because it's like, well, technically like they are licensable, and of course if they are licensable, or they are certificated, if somebody takes one of those off to put a muzzle brake on, well, technically you've got to keep that bird cage in your safe, which makes absolutely no sense. So stuff like that certainly should be looked at and changed. But I think you're right. Whilst technically within law they could blow your doors off, come raid your house because you've got all of these flash hiders lying about. Like, is it really in the interest of public? Is it in the public interest to prosecute somebody for not safely securing or not correctly selling a bird, a flash hider? I am in no way condoning actively going out there and breaking the law. Just want to give that one, put that disclaimer out there. But I don't think it would ever end up in court based on flash hiders. Whilst it is technically in the black and white in the law, there's just, like, again, what does a flash hider end up doing? It's the gun that you want to be worried about. Well, depends whose hands it in, I guess. Peter Rose, had my 22 WMR threaded the same as my 223, and now I can use the same moderator. Good approach on that one. God, you guys have been, you've been chatty. Callum, your confidence in how you present, this all helps us all who watch your channel. Keep it up. I'm like a duck swimming on the water here. It may seem calm and collective. Meanwhile, my little legs are flapping away. But no, I appreciate that. I do try to present as well as possible. Don't always. Depends how tired I am. Take mods off, but add tons of component parts. You've lost me there. Awful idea. What do you mean? Take mods off, but add tons of component parts. Oh, you mean component parts of ammunition? Yeah. No one really knows what's actually going on with that at the moment, so that is yet to be seen. I don't mean to start a political discussion, but after the next GE, mods may be the only thing left on our FACs. That's not necessarily a good thing. I suppose it really depends who gets in. Or does it? Does it really matter who gets in? Both Conservatives, Labour have brought in pretty restrictive firearms law. If they do it by removing mods from the definition of firearm, they could then be posted too, although we'd still need a separate law change in Scotland for an air weapon mod. Yeah, that's interesting. People do always forget about Scotland. The points you are making is exactly why we shouldn't add component parts. Recording cases, bullets adds significant paperwork. What we should be doing is removing mods and ammo limits. Yes, I'm not saying... yes, it's more paperwork, but it's not the sort of paperwork as transferring a moderator or buying a moderator. That's down to the certificate holder and the RFD, not firearms licensing. But yeah, I think having more restrictions around ammunition components is ridiculous. I don't think it would make a huge difference to the certificate holder. Just a few little more lines that you have to write on your certificate. And yes, I suppose it means that you're probably going to need a new certificate quicker, so more paperwork for FLD. It's not something that I think really achieves the ultimate aim of stopping criminals getting hold of this stuff. It's like, oh, a criminal has illegally obtained a 9mm handgun. How are we going to present that? Well, what we're going to do is stop them from being able to buy the powder, the primers, and the cases and the bullets. Even though for primers and powder, you do technically need a... most RFDs will not sell you primers and powder without a firearm or shotgun certificate. So it's like, maybe, for the police, instead of like, okay, if they've got a gun but they've got no ammunition, they can't shoot it. But maybe the problem here is the fact that they have the 9mm handgun in the first place, and stopping them or making it slightly more difficult for them to obtain powder, to obtain primers, cases, and bullets. They've still got the 9mm handgun here. Like, they've obviously been pretty resourceful to be able to get hold of the most illegal part of this equation, right? And the most difficult, they've got hold of the more difficult bit. The powder, primers, cases, and bullets, not really that much of a stretch if they've already got the gun right. So I don't think it's going to achieve anything, and I think it is for whatever level it becomes going to be more hassle for nothing. But here's a question. Would you rather have to write down your bullets, your cases, your primers, your powder, and not have moderators on certificates? If it's a give and take scenario, what would you prefer? Free moderators for all, or have to put down all the individual components on your firearm certificate? I mean, personally, I don't do any shooting at the moment that requires moderators, and I'm currently not hand loading, so it's actually, for me it's like 50-50. But I'm sure all of the home loaders will be going, no, they can keep the moderators on ticket, and I'm sure all the people that are going out there stalking are going, yeah, no, you can take the ammunition. Firearms should be every 10 years and not caliber specific. Once you have passed their checks, you should be able to buy what you want. One argument that I always like to make is that the fact I can pass all the checks to get the license means that I should be able to own handguns. Otherwise, what's the point in the license? But handguns, like, okay, they're treated as this sort of special thing within, mainland, within Great Britain. But it's not like they are this special thing, right? It's, I don't know why it's always back down to, handguns. Handguns are the thing that we want. Handguns. Semi-auto, right? Full auto. There could be an argument made that if you're able to own a straight pull / bolt action 50 BMG, like, why can't you have a full auto MP5? It's in terms of the potential dangers. Personally, a full auto, I think they're, in a way, they're less dangerous to the public because, well, it's over in a second, and usually half the bullets go up into the sky. So, but yeah, it's, I think not maybe changing that from handguns. It should be like all guns. If you're able to own one type of gun, why can't you own all types of guns? Look at a lot of what's happened here in the UK. Look at what happened in Plymouth. That was done with a Section 2 restricted capacity shotgun, right? Nothing particularly special, run-of-the-mill. What happened that day could have literally have happened with any other gun in existence. Like, there's even some air guns out there that would have been able to do the same sort of thing. So it's not a case of he was walking around there with a handgun and was able to inflict more because it was a particularly powerful gun. It was just a run-of-the-mill pump action shotgun. So again, the politicians and the antis are trying to protect people from. Well, it's like, well, of course, this is what they want, but it's like, well, either with that logic, you ban all guns, which isn't going to work because criminals are still going to have them, deranged people are going to still get hold of them, or you just leave us alone and let us own whatever we want. Black Penny Pig, which is what EnglishShooting is saying we are trying to get rid of. So anybody joining this conversation late, let's give you some context. So just as a reminder, so this has all been sparked, this discussion of moderators has all been sparked by this article from the Gun Trade News, The Sound of Silence, BSSC and GTA campaigning to remove moderators from licensing, and really the highlight is here. Chris Phillips, the police minister, has stated there is a strong and growing case for legislating to remove them from firearm licensing control. So they're talking about completely de-restricting moderators. Let's go and have a look at page 40, giving everyone all the free advertising. Where is page 40 then? Let's have a read of the magazine with me. Come on. Was that it? No, that's page 27. It's an interesting. I do try to flick through this. There's quite a lot in there. Obviously, about all the shows that are coming up. We've got the Great British Shooting Show in February. We've got what? I flicked right past it. Gun Trade Association, Simon West. Oh, come on. Stay in one place. Well, that's useful, isn't it? Moderators look like a licensing anomaly, and removing them from the need for regulation would streamline business. Simon West says, now is the time to make an effective case to government. The first... Oh, God. Come on. Let's try, because I'm zoomed in. The first patent for the device designed to lessen the noise of a firearm was granted to Jacob Stihel of Switzerland in 18... I really didn't know they were that old. His simple design of a cattle killer gun had a sound suppressing chamber between the muzzle and the point of impact that slowed the release of gas to the atmosphere. Presumably, this was a pragmatic solution to avoid creating too much alarm amongst the herd as they entered the abattoir. Lovely. So a little bit of history. In the 1930s, the renowned Alfred Parker and his nephew Alfred Parker Hale, were manufacturing moderators in the UK when the Firearms Act of 1920 was being reviewed in 1934 by a committee chaired by Sir Archibald Bodkin. Evidence was collated on various new technologies, included in their examination were silencers. I recently visited the National Archives in Kew to look at the original minutes. While the committee engaged broadly on most firearms, when they looked at silencers, they took evidence from only a few experts. The limited view was that the silencer is only used for illegitimate purposes. As a result, they were included in the 1937 Act, therefore requiring controls. Thus the first time we see the inclusion of them is in the definition of a firearm. Any accessory to such weapon designed to adapt or diminish the noise or flash caused by firing the weapon, still there today. So this, I think, again, this just gives more argument to why it needs to be reviewed, why we need to do something different, because this is legislation from getting up to 100 years ago, 1937. Things are a lot more different now. They're a hell of a lot different. Like, this is before the Second World War, for crying out loud. So it's, yeah, we're living in very different times. Delisle. During the war, with interesting new demands from the Special Operations Executive, Major Hugh Reeves at Station invented the Welrod pistol, and Godfrey Delisle, the Delisle carbine, both optimized for their suppression and are examples of guns with very low noise output. As we know today, rifle moderator. This is quite a long. I don't think I'm going to go through and read all of this. The situation has changed considerably since 1934, and the continued bureaucracy for licensing departments and RFDs to waste time on accounting for these accessories is pointless. At the time when the police are asking for more money, let's see them look for sensible efficiencies that have no impact on public safety. That is incredibly well put. You know, at the end of the day, they're asking for more money. They're saying that they don't have enough time and that they're overworked and they don't have enough resources. Well, there are other ways to counter that by just putting up the fees and taking longer to do certificates. So moderators are not assassin silencers. They are accessories to protect shooters and lessen the impact of our sport on the public. A huge amount of time and effort goes into unnecessary accounting where there is no apparent modern day risk to public safety. Do give me your thoughts. None of this will be quick, but we are moving in the right direction. And in my meetings with officials, I will be able to represent your views. very, I think, very sensible. We would not want to see an unregulated, free-for-all internet-based economy. So maybe they're still saying then that they want. Interestingly, I have brought law enforcement attention to vapor trap fuel filters being sold online. They're clearly designed as moderators, and if you go to Google, you'll see what's on offer. So obviously they're not concerned. That was pretty much the justification and argument that I was using earlier. Like, look, people can go and get them already from online. Like, we've all seen the adverts, right? We've seen the adverts on Facebook of all places about how easy it is to get oil filters. And you know, the head of the Gun Trade Association is basically using the same argument. Like, well, the police can't be, Facebook can't be that concerned. Like, the police can't be that concerned because it's bang straight. It's, you know, in terms of illegality, in terms of how illegal it is, it would literally be like seeing an ad for some crack cocaine, right? And Facebook just going, but it's not crack cocaine. It's like, you know, it's spicy sugar. There we go. You know, some adverts for some spicy sugar. And Facebook going, yeah, that's perfectly okay, because that's what they're doing with, you know, and the police going, yeah, spicy sugar, whatever. It's not, in terms of how illegal it is, bearing in mind that possession of an unlicensed firearm, i.e. a moderator, or moderator, i.e. a firearm, that's 5 years in prison, right? You literally can get less for being in possession of Class A substances, yet people can go and get them. Anyway, I think we're pretty much all in agreement that it's a good thing to do, and it looks like it may be changing. In terms of changing, let's change the subject, and some very interesting developments going on. I have been sworn to secrecy. I know a lot more than what I'm letting on, but I will refer to what is already public information, and that is we are going to see a lot more Kel-Tec here within the UK after good friends over at Calibre Innovations have signed a deal with them. As you can see, I will remove all of the conversations to not put anybody's face out there. Not that you probably can tell who they are, but here we go. Here's the post. So Calibre Innovations, so they were out in SHOT Show after some really good conversations at SHOT Show with Kel-Tec. We are pleased to announce a formal collaboration with them. More exciting news coming in the few weeks. I may or may not have an idea of what that exciting news may be, but let's I'm not going to say either way. Again, I've been sworn to secrecy, but obviously let's go have a look at the Kel-Tec website. Now, I think there's been a lot of discussion about the KSG 410. I believe unless they start putting unless they put silly long barrels on it, maybe even longer stocks, it's a bit harder to make that UK legal. But we can have a look at what some of the potentials would be. I mean, rifles, obviously we can't have centerfire full bore, but that's a bit nice. So we can't have semi-auto centerfire, but you know, I mean this. So we have seen these before. The 22 WMR CMR30. So Calibre Innovations has already previously brought these into the UK. So I'm sure we're going to see more of those. But in terms of what else we're going to see, obviously when in the centerfire full bore calibers, we're going to have to see straight pulls. But Kel-Tec being quite an innovative, smart company, I wouldn't put it past them being able to convert some of the full bore stuff to straight pull. That does look like it would be UK legal out of the box. So we're certainly going to see some of this, most likely these two, brought into the UK and available. It would be really, really cool to see some of the other stuff that Kel-Tec is known for being brought into UK legal variants. And then, so this is what I want to get my hopes up for, because it has been discussed for so long. Like, could we be seeing a Kel-Tec LBP? Is that a possibility? Again, a company like Kel-Tec, you know, they can make the barrels, they certainly can get the barrels, and adding a rod on the end isn't going to be out of their scope of sort of design and capability, right? You can imagine that if they've agreed a formal cooperation with a UK company, like, we all know we want more LBPs, and the one that is always brought up time and time again is, why isn't there, and this is probably next to, oh, we shouldn't have ammunition limits, or, oh, we should have moderators off certificates. The next sort of go-to question, certainly on or clubroom discussion, is, why hasn't somebody brought in or made a 22 WMR LBP? Right? Again, a company like Kel-Tec, they can make the 12-inch barrel. They can put the silly rod on the end. A 22 semi-auto WMR long barrel pistol would, I don't know if game changer is the right word, because we were talking about this today. We were saying, like, you know, why hasn't it done? Why hasn't somebody brought one in? And in some respects, what is the main drive for long-barreled pistols? Now, in my bubble of practical, I would want to say, oh, it's practical shooting. Practical shooting is driving the purchase of long-barrel pistols. But then the first long-barrel pistol I ever bought, I don't know if I'd even started in practical shooting. Maybe I had. But it wasn't. I just wanted one because it was like, oh, it's the closest thing we can have to a handgun on a Section 1, aside from the Allen Westlakes. So I just wanted one because it was just something different, and it was the closest thing that I could have to a handgun. And I think there's going to be a lot of that. If somebody brings in a 22 WMR LBP, it's not going to be the practical market that goes for it, because, well, you can't use one in an IPSC. Well, again, technically long barrel pistol disciplines don't exist within IPSC. It's only a UK thing, because long barrel pistols are only a UK thing. But you're not going to be seeing 22 WMRs on the practical circuit here within the UK. You might see some outlaw matches. You might see them crop up in like 3-gun matches, maybe NRA, but pretty much the rules are written so that we're going to see it's only 2.2 long rifle. But it's the people that want to experience more of a handgun here. It's a little bit more recoil, and I think potential training with them, sort of recoil management, there is going to be more recoil. It is going to feel more like a full bore handgun. And I think that is going to be probably the biggest sell for it. Also, it's a Kel-Tec, right? You know, the last batch of Kel-Tecs, if it is a Kel-Tec, and people have been talking about the likes of the PMR 30 as an LBP for a very, very long time, specifically that gun. So we will have to see. It would, I think it would sell, like, without a doubt. Let me know, would you be interested? Would you be straight, if there was a 22 WMR LBP on the market, would you rush out and go and buy it? Like, I think there's a lot of people that would be straight down the firearms licensing departments and pleading for a variation as quickly as possible. It's just like when all the 22 WMR AR-15s came along. Like, again, when you write it down on paper, there isn't a real, there's not necessarily a sporting need for it, but people wanted them because it was like a slightly punchier semi-auto. Like, oh great, I can take my semi-auto AR-15 out to further distances. I can, do better cross training with, shooting centerfire. I know that 22 WMR doesn't hit isn't exactly that punchy, but it's certainly punchier than a 22 LR. Daniel, bet money it's a 22 WMR LBP. 22 WMR LBP. Daniel Snap called it. Any explanation for Daniel, what's going on? We can't ever have centerfire full bore yet. Never say never. NI is actually worse for everything to do with firearms other than handguns. You need an FAC for all air guns, so it's worse than Scotland for them, and also for shotguns, but I still prefer their system. Again, if they turn around tomorrow and said every gun is going to be on a firearm certificate, that's a much bigger question. But if they put everything on a firearm certificate, air guns, shotguns, everything, but then you could have handguns and centerfire semi-auto rifles again. I mean, personally, I'd be jumping at that, you know. But I know the millions of air gunners out there, you know, it would decimate the airgun industry. So the air gun industry is the biggest gateway to shooting sports. So it's sort of like, yeah, it would be very good for people already with certificates or wanting to go for certificates, but it would potentially kill the sport from the grassroots. Kel-Tec are known for their fondness for spicy sugar, so things should be interesting. here's your complimentary Kel-Tec spicy sugar with your 22 WMR LBP. Kel-Tec loves screws high quality. Love what? Long barrel pistol pointless, law change and allow only in 2.2. Long barrel pistols aren't pointless, right? They are pointy, they've got a barrel, but they're not pointless. And I really sort of detest this whole attitude of, oh, I'm not going to buy a long barrel pistol because we should have real guns. It was like, well, we can't have the real handguns. Like, so it's LBP or nothing. And actually there's a lot that you can learn and train with to go and shoot internationally with an LBP, and there's still really fun matches put on that you can go and shoot where you're drawing from a holster, you're wearing your pistol rig, and it's like, just, you know, on that merit, oh yeah, I'm not going to shoot an LBP because we're not allowed proper handguns and we should have proper handguns. It's like, well, all right, so just because we can't have proper handguns, I'm not going to shoot any gun out of protest, just the principle of it. Like, don't be so ridiculous. It's, you know, oh, we haven't got handguns, so I'm not going to shoot an LBP. Oh, well, fuck off then. Like, just, the LBP market is booming. There is a big market for it. There's a big draw towards it because it's people making the most of what we've got. Should we have handguns that don't have a silly rod on it and a long barrel? Absolutely we should. But to not go anywhere near an LBP or an LBR or an Allen Westlake because they're only a slight substitute for what we should or used to have, that's just literally cutting more of your nose off to spite your face. That is a good point, Tony. 1,000 round mini mag, £125. 1,000 round 22 WMR, 420 rounds. Yeah, so you know, you're talking like 3-4 times the cost there. But then I don't think you're going to see people going out there and putting thousands of rounds through one. You're not going to see them putting thousands of rounds for training and going and competing in loads of competitions. It is purely going to be, I'm sure there will be sort of some gallery competitions. There's going to be people that do use them in like sort of in club competitions, but it's going to be a curiosity gun. It's the same thing as like a Chiappa Badger, right? There's no sporting need for it. Yes, you could probably say like humane dispatch of a squirrel or a rabbit, but it's an interest gun. It's a curiosity. It's a bit of fun. It's something it's something different to pull out of the safe, chuck in your bag, and go down the range with. And that's why I think the first person to bring in a 2.2 WMR LBP, they're going to sell out. With, you know, look at the flip side. Now, okay, this does have a huge sporting draw, but the Korths, right? The Korths that have been brought in with Cotswold Classic Arms and Firing Solutions, you're talking a £5,000 to £6,000 revolver, right? And yet they've sold out of the first batch. That's how much people, again, there's going to be serious level competitors, and when you get into the upper levels of serious competition, it's almost like money becomes no object. Certainly if you want to stay at the top level of the sport. But there's a lot of people that have bought those Korths that have never shot in an IPSC match. They've never shot in a practical match. They just want something cool. They want something high quality and nice and different to pull out. You know, anybody that has any interest in revolvers, your options are a used Taurus, a used Ruger, a £3,000 or £4,000 Rude Fat Dog 686, or a £1,600 brand new Chiappa Rhino. Like, literally the only LBR you can currently go and buy off the shelf is a Chiappa Rhino. So if you like your revolvers, like, you're sort of stuck, and something coming along with something a little bit different, and that's going to be the same thing with the Kel-Tec. There's going to be people that, regardless of the LBP, but there's going to be people that want to just own some Kel-Tecs. You know, it's a big brand. It's something that I think there's only literally like 15 UK legal Kel-Tec rifles. I think that's all that was bought in by Caliber, maybe 20 or so. But they all sold. And there's going to be people that want more. There's going to be people, it's a gun that we've not yet had access to. But anyway, I digress. Desert Eagle LBP. It would have to be straight pull. And that could be doable. We could see. I mean, you'd have to buy the component parts first, and then how would you do that? Yeah, it could be done. I know there was somebody, I think it was Daniel, that was trying to buy in the Smith & Wesson 500 underlever. That I would like to see. That I'd really like. Or what about, instead of a Desert Eagle LBP, going for a Smith & Wesson 500 LBR? That would be cool. It would be a nightmare, absolutely nightmare, to get the ammunition components for it. That's for sure. Daniel, don't give Kiddle ideas. No, David Kiddle is the sort of guy you want to give the ideas to, because he's going to go out there, source it, get it, and bring it in. You know, again, first people to bring in a Glock LBP. The first Glock LBP that was available on the market, Caliber Innovations. The first Kel-Tecs available on the UK market, Caliber Innovations. You know, so they bring in the interesting stuff. Aaron T. Walther now making a WMR pistol. Any chance they'd do an LBP? Well, that's going to be like, that will be down to Oceana Defence. So it's Oceana Defence that brings in the Walther PPQ LBP and the Walther 1911. So I would imagine it would be them talking to Walther and initiating that. But I think, yeah, there's a market from it. I seriously, buy in 100 WMR LBPs, they will sell. No problem whatsoever. Anyway, moving on. This is all about guns, and we do like our guns. And any more guns that come to UK market, the better, really. So following off from a story from last week, so Keir Starmer went on LBC and said some really silly stuff, basically. the summary of it. And Basque has given a little bit of a statement. Basque briefs Labour Party following firearms licensing comments. Basque made contact with the Labour Party earlier this week following statements from their leader, Keir Starmer, regarding the firearms licensing process. Sir Keir made the comments during an interview on LBC Radio in which he discussed the recent and tragic shooting in Euston in his constituency. In the interview, he said, "Oh yeah, bearing in mind this shooting was a drive-by shooting with an illegal firearm, and the guy has since been arrested. So it was illegal. The gun was illegal, the possession of the illegal, and the whole act of driving past a funeral, opening fire indiscriminately, is surprisingly also illegal." In the interview, he stated there are many illegally owned guns out there, and there are legally owned guns. Fuck. Which I don't think should be in the hands of the people who are legally owning them. It's like, oh, Jesus. I think it's the illegally owned guns in the hands of the people that really shouldn't be owning them is the real bloody concern there. And that people have access to guns that they shouldn't have access to. Yes, the ones leaning out a car window shooting at people. A Basque spokesperson said the UK has some of the strictest firearms laws in the world. Sir Keir is right to say that firearms should only be in the hands of those legally responsible. However, his comments have caused unnecessary concern among the shooting community. With more than 600,000 certificate holders in the UK, shooting plays a significant role in the rural economy and conservation efforts. Basque has briefed Labour MPs and written to the office of Sir Keir, offering to meet in person to discuss the topic of firearms licensing in further details. Again, we're going to get straight on to another story, which is, it's like, people legally have access to guns they shouldn't do. No. It's not about the guns, not about the type of guns. It's about the certification and the vetting of the people that hold them. Which brings us to the Plymouth shooting inquest. Day 4 begins as more revelations are made. Lots of really interesting stuff coming out of here. That's literally a blow-for-blow account of the inquest, and I will get to the main bit that I want to discuss, but let's have I'm sure I'm making you dizzy, but what they released, this is doing the rounds in all the tabloids, and nobody's getting it right. The Daily Mail showed this photo and literally wrote underneath it, a picture of the gun that the Keam shooter used. Below it is a picture of a tactical shotgun that firearms units use for breaching. Now, what's happened is there's another picture. I don't know if they've actually posted it. Let me have a quick... nope. So there is another picture. So basically what this picture was used to show the inquest was... So this gun up top... it's a pump action Webley 12 gauge shotgun. It's a section 2, so it's a restricted capacity, means 2 in the tube, 1 in the chamber, 2 plus 1. That is a gun that was used for the Keam shooting, and this is a standard sporting over and under 12 gauge shotgun. Over and under because it has 2 barrels and they're over and under each other, or under and over and under and over. That's what you're going to be using for clays. This, I'm not going to get into the overall discussion of need and all of that, but there are less hunting and sporting applications. I get people like to have the pistol grip. I'm sure there's certain people to do with their ergonomics, maybe even arthritis, stuff like that prefer having a pistol grip stock. But this isn't the sort of gun that you're going to see on a playground often, right? First of all, it's got actual iron sights. Like, this is more of a slug gun or maybe buckshot gun with those sights. And for practical shooting, like here's a top tip. If you're looking at getting into practical shotgun, do not buy a pistol grip. Trust me, your hands will thank me later, because in a practical match, you can have a 28 shot or 28 target stage, and you're going to be shooting those 28 targets within within a few tens of seconds, hopefully, if everything goes right. You end up putting hundreds and hundreds of rounds through your gun in a competition, and you can put thousands of rounds through it during training. Taking the brunt of that recoil in the web of your hand will get very old very, very quickly. It also, pistol grip shotguns for practical are also much harder to load, just overall more awkward. So what they're trying to do, so the back end of this inquest is they are very much trying to vilify the black tactical looking shotguns. And the picture, I think I might have found it. Yeah, here we go. This is the other picture. So basically, the narrative that they're going with at the moment in terms of banning pump actions is this is the gun that is used by the firearms department. Interestingly, that looks like a Vortex Venom on there. Nice. And it's got a pistol grip, but then there are some very, very key differences. First of all, it has a collapsible folding stock, meaning that the overall length is section 5, hence why the police have it. Second of all, the barrel is much shorter, again making it section 5. So it's these sorts of nuances that are going to be lost on a general member of the public. Like, yeah, at a glance, anybody with half a brain are going to go, it's the same gun, it's very similar. But there are very big reasons of why this can be owned as a Section 2 shotgun under a shotgun certificate, and also capacity. That's the one thing you can't really see. This isn't going to be restricted capacity, right? It's going to be, you're going to be able to fill that up. This is restricted, but they are very much painting like, oh, the only reason that this shooting happened was because he had a black tactical looking evil gun that is very similar to most general members of the public to this gun that the police uses, and then obviously putting it side by side with the likes of this. Oh, this is a normal sporting gun. This is a normal sporting gun. Look how different this looks. Why does anybody need this? The danger in doing that, and selfishly why I'm really concerned about this, is you start putting a Benelli M2 speed, a Benelli M2 SP, you start putting a Beretta 1301 Comp, the black version, not the Comp Pro, the Comp. You start putting Beta B12Is next to it. You start putting the Franchi Affinity. You start putting the Stoeger M3000, the M3K next to this gun in comparison to this gun, and this. Basically, all of those practical guns, all the guns that are used for practical shooting, they're even used for the likes of wildfowling or target shotgun. They don't look too dissimilar to this. So are we going to see them really pushing for black tactical pump actions to be banned? You know, the Benelli Supernova, the Nova Speed. Okay, it's a little bit more colourful, but you put them side by side, and most members of the public are going to most likely agree that this, along with the likes of the Nova Speed with the Supernova and guns that are quite often used in practical, are going to be banned along with it. You know, it's not about, it's back to the whole Sean O'Neill thing. Would it be better if I painted it pink? If this was bright with the jazzles all over it, I'm sure people would have less of an issue with it. But, because it's not wooden, at the end of the day, this gun only has one extra round capacity than this gun, right? It's laughable that they're going again over the aesthetics and the appearance of the gun rather than the real issue, which in fair they have gone. They have got to, but this is just another warning flare that they really do have a hard on at the moment for pump actions, and specifically black pump actions that look a little tactical, right? It's just more of that narrative. But what I more want to get onto, this is an interesting point, a quick side point, is Damning National Firearms Review reported in 2015 predicted future tragedy. The report is said to have added forces were working outside. So this is from 2015. The report is said to have had have had added forces, were working outside. Jesus, they could use a bit of spell checker, right? Home Office guidance and sometimes inexcusably compromising public safety. The report predicted further tragedy unless action was taken to improve firearms licensing in the UK. This was 2015, right? Okay, we've seen the additional guidance on assessing suitability. We've seen that come in, although that came in after the Plymouth shooting. But it's like so many experts, so many people from all different firearms backgrounds have been saying for years that firearms licensing needs to buck up its ideas. We have the right legislation, we have the right framework, it just needs to be implemented better. And that's what brings me to training of firearm inquiry officers. It was confirmed there was no specific training program of firearm inquiry officers and no nationally accredited training. Mr. Adamson said the reality is such training was really through mentoring and looking at what other firearm inquiry officers were doing in other applications they were dealing with. Chief Super Linden confirmed that there was an absence of effective training as highlighted in the 2015 UK Firearms Licensing Review. And this is ultimately what has caused this. I believe this is going to be, what has been found to be the ultimate cause. Like, they didn't know what they were doing, right? And all throughout this, they've been saying that, Home Office guidance wasn't being followed, right? So the only guidance that they had to do their job, they weren't following. And this is what we, as firearms owners, as certificate holders, this is what has been seen for years up and down the country, is the inconsistencies between firearms licensing departments, the inconsistencies between firearm inquiry officers within the same firearms licensing department. Because let's say, you have two old school firearm inquiry officers. One does everything to the book, follows the guidance, is exactly the model firearm inquiry officer, and takes somebody under their wing. They're going to train them the same way, right? But if you have another, say, old boy in the firearms licensing team that doesn't do things correctly, that sort of has interpreted the guidance how they want to interpret it, well, what are they going to teach? What are they going to teach? So this is all, again, building very much in this whole notion that there's going to be some sort of reform, that we're going to need some sort of independent review for firearms licensing, and this is what it goes on to go even further. Let's recap of evidence heard this morning. It had been heard this morning that police were not given effective training on gun license applications. This isn't just Devon and Cornwall. This is nationwide. This is not a specific instance, right? It was confirmed that there was no specific training program for firearm inquiry officers and no nationally accredited training. Dominic Adamson, counsel for the families, said the reality is such training was really through mentoring and looking at what other firearm inquiry officers were doing in other applications they were dealing with. Lyndon confirmed that there was an absence of effective training as highlighted in the 2015 Firearms Licensing the Review. A national report in 2015 into the effectiveness of firearms licensing in the UK predicted further tragedy unless action was taken to improve firearm licensing in the UK. 6 years later, he killed 5 people with a pump-action shotgun. It's like, they've just got to get it in there, haven't they? Not just a shotgun, not just with a gun, like a pump-action shotgun, on the streets of Keyham before then turning the gun on himself. I am all too familiar with that paragraph, sadly. It was also heard police should have obtained a medical opinion from his GP before granting his shotgun license. And this is another thing that has come to light out of this inquest, is for all this talk around GPs and GPs turning their back on helping with the police and not wanting to give any, liability to themselves. Well, I'm going to say it. I think there are GPs out there that have some blame in this. I'm not going to get involved. I'm not going to put my professional, career. No, this is literally what you do for a job, right? Do your job. Because if the GP had looked at the record, if the GP had liaised with the police and done what GPs originally agreed to do, this might have been prevented. So there has to be some culpability there that, the police and the GPs agreed to work together and the GPs agreed to sign off on things. And then they turned their back and said no. Now, granted, I think that was after this, but the GPs, in my mind, have always had a professional and moral obligation to work with the police in regards to firearms certificate holders and firearms owners, right? And by not doing that, they've basically haven't provided something that potentially could have stopped all of this. Now, I'm not going to put it solely on the GPs, because it's not like it was just the guy's medical record that was the only major red flag. The multiple arrests, his mum phoning up Prevent, mum phoning up the police and the NHS asking for help and pleading with the police to take away his firearm certificate because the guy was mental. His dad phoning up the police asking to take away his shotgun certificate because the guy was mental. So slight blame on the GP, still some major red flags missed. Regarding Home Office guidance, he said one should be considered. The guidance does not say one should be considered. The guidance does not say one has to be considered. It was noted a serious issue was identified when an independent audit committee called Southwest Audit Program, SWAP, an external body without firearms expertise and not police officers, looked into the administration auditing following the merger of the two firearms units, Devon and Cornwall Police and Dorset Police, in 2018. One of the reasons for the merger was said to save money. The 1819 audit reviewed 30 firearm application licenses, and one of those looked at by SWAP identified problems with how the force's simple and effective risk matrix had been applied. Jesus. The applicant was deemed to be acceptable, but according to the risk matrix as applied by the auditor, it should have been moderate. So even like 2-3 years ago, they weren't doing things correctly. There's so much more, but I think the biggest takeaway is, yes, they are still heavily going after pump action shotguns, and they really are trying to paint and control that narrative as best they can to potentially put forward a ban, restriction, or something. Will it be successful? I don't know. I don't think you're going to get the real power and money of the industry to help save pump actions, i.e. the game industry, the clay industry. It's like, well, as long as we can have side-by-sides and over and unders, like, we don't care. So it's gonna be the wildfowlers, which technically should really raise up BASC. BASC started its roots as a wildfowling organization, so if they go after pump actions, like, BASC should put its, 6-figure fighting fund where its mouth is and try and stop that. But ultimately, it's probably going to be left down to the likes of, the practical shooters, the UK PSA and stuff like that, because it's going to kill a whole area of the sport. Connors is going to be devastated if they ban pump actions. And there's no real good reason, especially when it's just clear as day. It has nothing to do with the type of gun that was used and everything to do with the continuous failings of this department and the inefficiencies and inconsistencies of our firearms licensing departments up and down the country. But sort of silver lining, if we can look at it in a tool positively, if we can, I think one of the things that is going to come out of here is a level of reform. Like, we're already seeing it left, right and centre with sort of nothing to do with Plymouth. But if the inquest comes out and says that this would have been prevented if there was consistent monitoring and accreditation, and we're also seeing, so there was a video from Field Sports Britain today where they had Bill Harriman, the head of firearms at Basque. That is an unfortunate place to have landed on the video. sorry Bill. Sorry, I'll try and find that's maybe a little better. There we go. No, I'm just going to leave it there. I think that's probably the best we're going to get. But Bill Harriman came out onto Field Sports Channel TV and basically said, we're sort of all for this. Basically, what the inquest is calling for is a consistent national firearms licensing department training and annual accreditation. So it's all well and good having the training, but you need to make sure that people they're staying up to speed, they're maintaining their knowledge and skill set when it comes to assessing people's suitability. So not only to have a consistent national training system for firearms inquiry officers, but also to test them on it and to regularly test them on it and to make sure that they are staying accredited and up to speed, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. Again, be careful what you wish for, because they may make the training far worse than it needs to be. And this is where, I have concerns. I've talked about it before. The likes of Mulberry Partners, it's a private company that is built, it is full of ex-police and ex-heads of firearms licensing departments and ones with not particularly good reputations. So what training they get and the interpretation that is going to be given to all firearm licensing departments, that's what we're going to have to be very careful to watch going forward. But I think, having consistent training nationally definitely needed, and testing and accreditation of, as we've basically we've had the curtain pulled back here, right? We have seen actually how they train these firearm inquiry officers, and it's just just come on the job with me for a while and see how I do it. That's not, you're talking about one of the highest levels of highest areas of public safety here, and there's not even a agreed training standard. When you think about it, it's absolutely ridiculous. How hasn't there been more? Right? Mainly because most of the public aren't complete nutters. So it'll be really interesting to see what comes out of that. Guarantee they will have a heart attack if they see the magfet. Shh. We don't talk about those. They don't know. La 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 la. Take the pump action, leave the box feds. They will have a heart attack if they see the mag-fed shotguns and AR-15s. At this rate, we will end up like Australia, where they can't even own a 1522 because it looks scary to them. Yes, I would disagree with you on that one. Alexander Dale, the variation in FEOs is real. One of the members of my club encountered a new FEO. He said he couldn't put 38 357 on an FAC. He had to pick a caliber and wouldn't authorize both types of ammunition. This it goes back to the likes of moderators and the nuances with that. It's just, that's all it takes. You get somebody that's new, wet between the ears, behind the ears, between the ears. It could be wet between the ears as well. And they don't, firearms law here is an incredibly in-depth and complicated subject. There are people that have been in the industry for decades and they still don't know every aspect. And I regularly put my hands up and say there are areas that I have very little understanding of. And yet, I work full time in the industry. It's incredibly complex, and to bring someone fresh off the street that has probably never even seen a real firearm and expect them to be able to interpret the guidance and expect them to understand all of the nuances of our laws without any structured approved, accredited training, you might as well give him a crystal ball. English shooting, since he is most likely the next PM due to Rishi being Rishi, are you worried about Starmer's comments, or do you think it could be the start of the UK turning a corner on gun culture? I don't think Keir Starmer's comments fill me with any joy. It just shows more of the misguided, misunderstood approach that most politicians have towards firearms. And, you know, he is the head of the opposition. If Labour gets in and no longer is the opposition, then if he's leading it, he's like, I don't think it's necessarily a good thing. The one thing, love him or hate him, the one thing you can say about Rishi is that his constituency is Richmond in Yorkshire, right? It is a heavy grouse shooting populace. It is a heavy shooting populace. He is going to have more of an idea about shooting and the rural economy than most MPs. So he's going to have some appreciation or better understanding of firearms and the community behind it than, say, someone like Keir Starmer. That would be my assumption. William Tell in Scotland, FEOs are generally properly trained. There's also a lot of AFOs and some ordinary plods involved in licensing. Also, knowledge is passed around. The system here works really well. Yeah, I do hear a lot of good things. I hear a lot of bad things. I hear a lot of good things about Scotland's firearms licensing. D Dirty, good night, chaps. The man flu has taken me down. Cheers, Callum and team. Well, thank you for persevering with your man flu. And before you all head off, hit that like button. Again, it's free. It's literally right there. Just click it. Because if you're watching and you're not liking while you're watching, hit that like button. And also, if you've been enjoying this stream tonight, make sure you subscribe, because we do this every single week, Thursdays 8:30 p.m. UK time, and we always have, I think, a good chat. Sometimes they're more positive, sometimes they're more negative. On a positive note to leave you all on, I'm sure I know some of you got frustrated with the amount of time that I dedicated to it in last stream, but for those of you that may not be aware, I was successful in my running for treasurer for the UK PSA. So very quite honoured, pleased, proud, happy to now be on the executive council of the UK PSA. It's sort of like, I was having this thought, you know, it's like the trials and tribulations. You know, from obviously having difficulties within the shooting community at points to now, you know, sitting at the top of, you know, again, I make no bones about it. Practical shooting is my main focus. I love all guns with triggers. I will take part in all types of shooting discipline, and I enjoy all types of shooting disciplines, but practical shooting is my main focus. And to now be, you know, officially involved in, you know, the future of the, you know, to be involved with the future of the national governing body for the main sport that I've effectively dedicated my life to now is well, it's going to pose an interesting and different challenge. But yeah, for anybody that watches that attended the AGM and voted for me, then thank you very much. It did all make the difference at the end of the day. And I think, you know, speaking to a lot of people after the AGM, it was really what I sort of have planned in a way to what I would like to do in that role. Not just how to fulfill the role, not just how to tick the boxes and, you know, cross the T's and dot the I's, but how I want to progress and use my professional experiences in helping to grow the association. And in terms of, you know, the keeping it as short as possible, the more funds that the UK PSA has available, the more it can be put back into the sport. And we were having a discussion on Discord last night about training courses and the ins and outs of why some people are charging £75 for a safety course, not training course, a safety course, why some people are charging £200, and some people are doing it sort of as a side thing, a hobby for the good of the sport, and some people are doing it commercially. But I think for me the ultimate question that came out of that is, the UK PSA as a charity, why aren't there some safety courses available free of charge? At the end of the day, it's the long and the short of that is it takes a lot of money to do it, and you need the money to be able to do it. So for something like that, if we're able to increase the revenue of the association, it's a charity. It's not there to make a profit, so any increased revenues gets put back in the sport. If revenues can be increased, we can look at free entry safety courses. We can look at supporting clubs with more matches. We can support people in areas that don't have access to practical shooting facilities to make practical shooting facilities. So yeah, there's lots planned. There's going to be a very steep learning curve, and I think I will have to put my sensible cap on more often than I probably would like to. But it's still very much the handover period, so not fully up and running in the role yet. But we will be having a meeting very soon to decide full council and the sort of the shape of the rest of the organisation. So it's going to be very interesting. So again, thanks for everyone for your support on that. It wasn't in vain, and it's nice to start the year with a win in that regards, and we'll see what we can do. I think the other members of exec as well. So anybody that's really interested in the UK PSA. So we have Andy Williams as chair. So he was the previous secretary, knows the bylaws, constitution, the runnings of the association inside and out, and from his professional career as well, will be able to run a tight ship. We've got Graham Mitchell as secretary, again a guy that is completely dedicated to the sport, switched on, progressive, not necessarily wants change, but wants to push the sport forward. We've got Richard Clifton now as the RD. The previous RD, the regional director, had been in the role for 10 years. So we've lost a lot of experience in that regard, but we have someone that's probably going to bring something, fresh ideas, again, very motivated to push the sport forward. And I know Richard well, worked with him on quite a few things. And we've got Jim Nixon, who used to be PRO and achieved a lot of things, funnily enough, with Richard Clifton, with the Vision 26 as it is now. Again, all about pushing the UK PSA forward, growing it, making it bigger, better, and therefore furthering the sport of practical shooting. So we've got quite a we all know each other, we all get on, we've all got the same ideas, we've all got the same sort of vision to what where we want to try and help the sport move towards, and I think the members overall agree with that and are on board. So yeah, I keep on saying it's a team that we're basically no bullshit, let's just get shit done, and I think there's going to be a lot of that. Like I'm hoping we see a real rocket now with the association and the growth. Practical shooting, I still attest, is one of, if not the fastest growing sport, and I want to be part of that rocket fuel in getting it bigger. So yeah, it's why do you have to? That was a really positive way to end the stream, and now people are asking for mag updates. So mag updates. Basically, I'll try and keep it short. So we need another production run. We had, I think it was before or after Christmas, we had the first production run. So it was the first large run of magazines off of the machines. Unfortunately, there is inconsistencies within the batch. So the design is right. We know the design works. It's just making sure that the tolerances stay within an acceptable level throughout a batch, because some we can put in the gun, it works. Some you know, it's grown a little bit because of the temperatures of the mold, or I don't know. Basically, we've actually put a number of magazines there out in the wild to expedite the learning process. So we need to get all of that information back, understand what is changing and altering throughout the production batch, so that this can be fed back to the molders so that they can change it. There's also things they are really switched on. There's been a bit of frustration with them over the previous few months, as frustrated as you may be with us, we have been frustrated with them. There's now 2 company directors on this project, and they are throwing everything they have in it. They understand that, like, 6 months ago it was too long, and they are you know, they've basically, so they're remaking the molds as well. So they've identified that they can get a lot of improvements with, which is going to require machining new molds. So that's not a cheap process, and they are eating that. So they understand the importance. They know that they need to get this done, and yeah, we're going to have to get these new molds made. Luckily, they can turn them around very quickly and get a new batch. So we're hoping to have the second batch. I think it's going to be a week or 2 weeks, and hopefully, from what we've learned from this large production run, we'll be able to start getting proper finished, consistent magazines. It really is. This is our frustration with the molders, is that it's been very much, you know, 1 step forward or 2 steps forward, 1 step back, like all the time. You know, before Christmas, this is why we went and did this large production run. And bearing in mind, it's not cheap to do a run, right? They've got they use a total of 3 injection molding machines to make these to make the mags, right? So that's 3 machines, that's 3 operators for a whole day of running, plus all the plastic, plus the electricity costs of these machines. It's not cheap to do a run like this, and you know, so they had to be confident, and we were confident in the design. The issue is in the production now. So we've nailed the design. It's just making sure that the production matches that design. And the reason that we went through with this production run was because prior to Christmas, we had a sample run of like half a dozen mags, and they were like 99.9999% perfect. And this is the 1 step back, is that we needed to make just a couple of tweaks, and then all hell sort of broke loose, and we don't know what happened. We just went in the complete wrong direction with the production run, which was unfortunate. But yeah, Connor's really is losing sleep over this, and we are gonna try and hopefully have them out very, very soon. But yeah, we understand it's frustrating, and we just profusely apologize for the time that it's taken. But again, we're not going to compromise on releasing shit. It's, you know, I've said this a million times, we would rather refund everyone's order than send out shit. So we are quite literally sticking to our guns on this one, and we will see. Hopefully, we are talking weeks. We're not talking months. We're talking weeks. Although I've said that before, but we are still moving closer. We're still learning a hell of a lot. And what we found is that people that have these mags now out in the wild, after modifications here and there, they are running well. So we will. So it can be done, but we obviously need them to come off the machine ready to rock and roll. So hopefully it shouldn't be too much longer. There we go. There's your update. My best hope for the future of UK gun culture and UK in general would be reform actually growing bigger in power than Lib Dems, and eventually getting handguns legalized again. Of course, getting handguns legalized again would be great. Just to let you know, I'm not sure if you still cover stuff like this, but I'm getting my shotgun license and I live in Suffolk, and they emailed me today to let me know it's upwards of 6 to 8 months. In all honesty, Jake, and I don't mean to sound flippant, and I'm sure you know this isn't going to be nice to hear, but I think there's a lot of people up and down the country that would rip their FEO's arm off for a 6 to 8 month turnaround time. That is actually pre-COVID fairly normal for some licensing departments. A lot of people have heard it, Devon and Cornwall, have heard in Wales, are being quoted 2 years for a certificate now. Tony Vicker, safety courses, what's the point of bringing more people into the sport when they are already insufficient, when there are already insufficient matches for the existing membership to maintain their required competency? Don't know what you mean about insufficient matches. I mean, the match calendar is a little sparser this year than it was last year. We have 3 level 3 shotgun matches. We have 2 level 3 mini rifle matches, and I believe there is going to be a 4th level 3 shotgun match announced in short order. So 4 level 3 shotgun, 2 level 3 mini rifle. Yeah, personally, we had 4 mini rifle level 3 matches last year. We've got the World Shoot in May 2024 now, so I would have liked to have seen the same amount for the practice, but it's down to the clubs to run them. This is something that I would like to explore. I would like to see more support from the association to clubs in running more matches. But at the end of the day, practical shooting is by far the safest shooting discipline out there. And for us to maintain growth, it needs to stay that way. We cannot at any point compromise on safety to get more people into the sport, because if you start letting people quite literally running around with guns that haven't been checked, that don't know what they're doing, it could become very dangerous very quickly. So the safety courses are needed. But in terms of the matches, yeah, we do need more matches. A lot of the matches do become oversubscribed, but that's about focusing at the grassroots level. That's about identifying more ranges that can put on practical shooting facilities, and as an association giving them the support that's needed to build that up to running level 2, level 3 matches. So it is something we're aware of. We know the membership wants more matches, and it is going to be a focus of ours to achieve that. That's depressing. I'm so bored of logging onto Facebook and every week seeing a bun fight in the practical shooting groups. It really harms the united front we need to secure the sport. Yes, unfortunately, it is a minority causing an issue for the majority. But, I mean, from what I've seen over the previous few weeks, like, people literally don't know what they're talking about, and at best are complete hypocrites. So that's all I'll leave on there. It's very interesting, some people's points of view. I guess that's one way to do it. It's just a shame such negativity is out there, and these groups are often how people first come across practical shooting. Yeah, I have seen that a lot. It's part of the reason. I don't know if anybody's noticed that I don't tend to get into many Facebook spats. I was notorious for it. I loved me a good Facebook argument, a good Twitter argument, or even Instagram argument. If there was one going on, I was there. Firstly, I don't have the time, and second of all, it's not constructive, especially, when a lot of the people, they've obviously got an agenda. It's not about rational, logical discussion or the furtherance of the sport. It's just to have a bit of a slinging match and a bit of an online showdown, and half the time they just don't seem to make any sense in their argument anyway. So, personally, and it's part of the reason that I ran for the role now, is that I'm very much a let's everyone make up, let's kiss, make up, and get on with the sport. And there will be certain, it is, and I believe it's the same way with the rest of exec, that there are bridges that I think need to be mended for the good of the sport, and certainly I'm going to try and do everything possible myself to see, and that may mean eating some humble pie, that may require going cap in hand to some people. At the end of the day, if it gets more matches on, if it helps make the sport stronger and it grows, then like fine, let's do that. Let's move on. Let's see the past in the past, and let's look towards the future. All of this infighting and having all these cliques, like I really don't care. I'm completely over that. If somebody wants to run practical matches, if somebody wants to start a practical club, no matter where you are in the country, no matter who's running it, who's doing it, like they should be supported to help grow this sport. Is there a UK PSA home range that could run more level 3s? No, there isn't. This is one of the challenges of the association, is that it is dependent on clubs running matches, because there is no range for the UK PSA. I know that a lot of people have expressed, that's what they would like to see happen. They would like to see the UK PSA buy a bit of land, buy a warehouse and turn it into, practical shooting world. It's something that I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to against, but that's a very big commitment for the sport, and it would need to be viable in so many different ways. At the moment, the biggest gains that I see it within the sport is focusing and bolstering the clubs that are already a part of the UK PSA, and identifying clubs that can be self-sufficient and grow. And that's something that I'm actively part of at the moment anyway. I'm talking to a number of playgrounds and helping to introduce them to practical shooting, showing them the commercial side of it as well, and the benefits in sort of opening up to practical. And so far the reception has been very, very good. And actually a lot of the reception that I get from these playgrounds is, oh wow, it's a hell of a lot less to set up than we thought it was, certainly compared to clay pigeon shooting, and it seems really popular. It's like win-win. So I think that's where the biggest growth is. Again, there's only a certain amount of money, there's only a certain amount of funding, so we've got to look at what we can do best with that funding now, but also look to grow that funding so that we can explore the bigger, bolder plans later down the line. That might not be, within the next few years, might not even be within the next 10 years. It could be even further than that. But we certainly need to have a vision and try and lay the groundwork towards that vision. Daniel, pro shoot could easily, again, it's very easy to say that, a club could just run more matches. There is an incredible amount of commitment required to do so, and also a hell of a lot of volunteer. It's not just about money and time, it's literally about people giving up their time, giving up their weekends, giving up their weeks to be able to put on these matches. So yeah, it's not as easy, a club's going to run more level 3s. So I think it's about finding more clubs that can run level 3s rather than leaning on those clubs to run more level 3s that already are. But anyway, quick note for those of you that might have missed it, because I think I even forgot about this on the stream last week. So if somebody, maybe I did, maybe I didn't, if you want to win a little bit of shooting swag, I'm going to put the post in the so that link will take you directly to the post. So this will be closing very, very soon. We said Thursday. It will probably close midnight tonight. Let me bring it up on the screen for you. But basically, if you want to win some cool Magload swag, then you can go and you follow that link and it will take you to this post. Let me bring that up. There we go. It'll bring you this post, so you can win a a Reflex 12 loader. So these are the loaders that self-collapse. It's the most compact loader you're ever going to get. Really cool piece of kit, and there's it. It is with cartridges, and you can see behind it some that have collapsed. So all you have to do is head over to Magload. So head over to that post. All you have to do is like the post, share the post, and make sure that you like the Magload Facebook page. And let's go and have a look at some sexy photos. Such a cool design. Connors really did excel himself on this one. And it's the 12 variant, so 12 capacity. It's great, and as an initial load, it's great for your loading on a stage. And I think maybe I did discuss this, because I might have said as well, if you are a lucky winner and you win the 12 and you want a 4 and an 8 instead, or you want 3 4s or whatever combination that, well, those are the only real combinations you could do, then we'd be more than happy to do that as well. Those are all the different ones. So you've got the 12, the 8 and the 4. So follow that link, head over to the Magload Facebook page, like the post, share the post, and you'll be automatically entered, and we will be announcing the winner tomorrow. And on that note, I think I'm going to call it there. So thank you very much for joining me this evening, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed it. We will be back here, same place, same time next week, 8:30 p.m. UK time. But yeah, I hope you all have a fantastic week. Hope you get out there and do some shooting, fill your weekends with shooting. I'm down at Hammond Petersham this weekend doing some mini rifle training, so great range down there, and it's been a while since I've got behind the mini rifle, so I need to brush off that rust. But yeah, thanks for joining. Thanks as always for your support. Don't forget, like, subscribe, share, join the Only ES Fans Club, and of course, as always guys, hope to see you soon.